One. It's not requiring kindergarten, it's requiring an assessment. See if they do. But if they do not go to kindergarten, they need to take an assessment. Okay? And here, that's the impediment, yeah. Think about, doesn't go to kindergarten, they go to first grade and they're not ready, whatever reason, developmentally, they may be lacking a little bit. They're gonna get a fair grade. This literacy act is gonna be replaced. So if they're ready, send them to first grade. If they're not, then so that they're not set up to fail in third grade. That's the way I look at it. Senator Smitherman. Hey, Senator Smitherman, can we go ahead and get started? We've got 30 minutes. You're okay.
That was nice. We see it sit in.
Yeah.
Lonnie Mae.
So it ain't all.
With a 2 and 2. Or that one. I'm not gonna do that. I don't know who he is. Barry Lomack, Alabama State.
Reverend.
We better let him speak. 1, 3 here and 2 here. Okay, we're on a tight committee meeting schedule. We have 30 minutes, so we need to go ahead and get started. We'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Butler, Senator Figures, Senator Gudger, Senator Hatcher, Senator Hovey, Senator Price, Senator Shellnut, Senator Smitherman, Senator Stutz, Senator Chasteen.
Here.
9-1. We have a quorum.
Okay, 9 members present. We have a quorum. Okay, we have a public hearing this morning. Clerk, will you call the first bill?
SB 181 by Senator Smitherman.
Senator Smitherman, couple of comments, and then we have 5 to speak this morning, okay?
Mr. Chairman, I know we don't have but 30 minutes, and I'm gonna be sensitive to it.
Okay.
But sometimes you can't finish a thought in the middle of a sentence. So I thought I would say that, y'all. I don't want you to think I'm trying to prolong what I have to say. I would not do that intentionally, but at the same time, I may not be summing up in no 30 seconds. I just thought I said it. But this bill deals with due process. And let me say it to you like this, and then I have a little brief statement that I like to present, is that everybody in this world has due process but the jury. Everybody sitting out there, you get charged with something, you're going to be able to know what you're charged with. It's going to call, you're going to get, you're going to be able to go before an impartial person, i.e. judge. You're going to be able to address your accuser. You're going to be able to ask them questions when they make allegations to you. And those allegations will be presented to that particular judge to be determined whether there's an innocent or a guilt. Jury don't have nothing but being drugged into the classroom, from the classroom to the office. They said what they said. The other person is gonna say, the teacher or whoever gonna say what they gonna say, and then they gonna get zapped. It's just, that's what's been going on. There's no kind of due process whatsoever. I gave this example. I give it every year. I went back to a school, and there was a young man who was standing in the hallway. I walked up to listen what was happening. The only reason I went back, I forgot to get her lunch money. Y'all know how you get that lunch money trying to get to work. I forgot it and shot on back. The child standing in the hall, teacher standing in the hall, 3 other little kids standing behind this young man. The teacher getting ready to take him to the principal's office. Taking the principal's office because he had struck another child. Sitting there, I listened to the whole conversation. I asked the teacher this. I asked what happened. The teacher told me. Teacher didn't know who I was whatsoever. By the way, I'm an attorney also, but they didn't know nothing about that. The teacher told me what happened. Said, yeah, I'm taking him there because he hit this child and he's gonna be disciplined. 3 little girls were behind. Said, didn't he hit the little boy? Got 5-year-olds being witnesses. They said, yeah, he hit him. So I asked the teacher, I said, would you just do one thing for me? And the teacher looked like it took her 5 minutes for her to decide that she would do it. I said, just ask the little boy why he hit the boy. Reluctantly, the teacher asked. The little boy said, because the other kid hit me first. Then the 3 little girls said, that's right. They hit him first. He was sitting down in his chair and they went up there and hit him, so he defended himself. The one who hit first wasn't nowhere headed to the office, hadn't been questioned or anything. That's due process, what you saw me do there. And that's what this bill will do, will allow these children who are accused, instead of being thrown out of school without any process or whatsoever, to be able to present what their side is and be able to do it to a neutral person, whoever that might be. Now, quickly, I can wait till the end, or I can do it now, but I have something to present regarding due process and impact that it's already had on our state.
Okay, let's go ahead and get to the public hearing, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
That's okay with you?
That'll be fine.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, and just to remind the committee members, in the public hearing this morning, we will not be voting on this bill. We will hear the bill, and the, who's speaking, clerk? Would you call the first one up?
Mr. Chairman, let me ask a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Because things have changed over the years. I know when I was education chair, we would have a public hearing, and that public hearing would give notice a week before the public hearing actually was held. And then we wouldn't vote on that bill that day. We would vote the next week unless there was a unanimous vote on the committee to want to do it that day. Do you have any rules in place with that, or will every bill be treated differently?
I would like to treat each bill differently, because sometimes the committee members need more information, or they would like the opportunity to ask more questions before voting on a bill that we've had a public hearing on. So I just feel like, in fairness to committee members, if you need, or any committee member needs to have further discussion.
What about notice?
Notice should have been out last week on this public hearing.
Okay.
We tried to get it out.
I know it just doesn't happen that way in all committees, and I just want to know what
We just try to do advance notice on public hearings, and it's a case by case. You know, if it's a bill like we feel like we need more discussion, or the committee members aren't fully prepared to vote, then I think that's, you know, the way we'll handle it going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Reverend Ray Mack, representing Alabama State Conference of NAACP.
Reverend Mack.
I am not Mac, but I'm representing the state conference.
Would you step to the podium, please? You have 2 minutes.
Thought I had 3.
We're going to cut it short today because Senator Smitherman's got some remarks to make.
Bobby Mays, Elmore County NAACP, and and I am representing the Alabama State Conference of the NAACP. We believe this is a good bill. We support it. The idea that fair treatment for all students who are facing suspension or even expulsion when they violate student codes or even state law, everyone should have that due process. It's agreed that removing students, should be agreed by all of us, that removing students from the classroom, it is not productive. That's something we should not be wanting to do. We need a process in place that is standard for each student, each school, and each district. This eliminates the underprivileged, and disadvantaged students from being disproportionately targeted, mistreated, and punished. However, there are concerns around the adoption of new rules. Oftentimes when this takes place, when new rules are implemented, sufficient input from affected stakeholders such as the NAACP, ACLU, Alabama Arise, you don't get that. That's the kind of meaningful input you need in order to make certain that any bill that's implemented really is done fairly. You gotta want to do that. So we ask that before any kind of new rules is taken, that the committees, whoever they are, engage in meaningful dialogue and receive input from social justice organizations that have already been named. The goal should be to increase the likelihood of the likelihood of Alabama's youth ending up in this thing that we refer to as school to prison pipeline. And when you carry students to the office as indicated by Mr. Smitherman, that's what you end up with. So I urge you to give this bill the kind of treatment it deserves and support SB 181.
Thank you, Mr. Mack.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Corey Jones, Superintendent of Greene County.
Welcome, Mr. Green.
Jones. Good morning. Corey Jones, Superintendent of Greene County. One of the things that we advocate for is protection of due process for everyone. We ensure that in education. But there's one section of this bill that is concerning to me as an educator, and I give you an example that just happened in my district. On April the 5th, I received a call from the principal that she had received a statement from a teacher that a student had confided that another student had a gun on campus. And that student was drastically afraid of that student. We did a complete lockdown of the building. Started with an interview of the student that was accusing to see was it credible. Determined that it was credible. That student was extremely fearful of this student because allegedly that student had shot someone in the community a couple weeks early. Law enforcement was involved. We found a weapon on campus. We went through due process for the student, had an expulsion hearing. But if that student is forced to testify, she would not have came forward. And the reason she came forward because of a relationship with the teacher. We're trying to foster a relationship where our students feel safe and know that they will be protected. This section will definitely undermine our efforts. It will make our building less safe. So I encourage you to please look at, I think it's line 143 through 147. That language is for requiring a student to step forward and testify in front of the person they're accused need to be considered. As a school, as professional, is that we are charged with making sure that first it's a credible accusation, and that everyone is given due process. That student was afforded a hearing and the ability to defend every statement that was stated against him. The only thing we prevented was that student coming forward, in which her life, or that student life, would be on the line at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could just ask Superintendent Jones, since law enforcement was involved and you did actually find a weapon, why would this other student have to testify, if you will?
Okay, without going into too many details, that student was fearful because other students was involved in trying to hide the weapon
I see.
from that student.
So it wasn't just about the
It's
person
not
who
just
had the
about
gun.
one student. That one student was taken by law enforcement.
But I do think there are things, Senator Smithman, you can help me with this. Aren't there things already in place that protect children who have to testify or whatever, that they would be protected?
Yeah, those here, even now in juvenile court, those hearings are excluded from the public totally. And they're done exclusively with that student.
They're like virtually, it's,
You also have virtual hearings. You also have hearings that are pre-recorded.
they do
But
protect.
the key is that you get a chance to cross-examine the person. So you got that person, got your folks in there, and you got the person that's defending the other person to be able to ask that. You know, and so, yes, that's the case.
But my position is with a child, when they know that they have to come publicly out with a situation like this, they're not. They're not going to come forward when they know that this will lead to real retaliation that law enforcement may not be able to protect them from.
And, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Senator Smith, last comment, and then we'll move to the next.
Okay. And at the same time, you got the child that's being falsely accused.
Okay.
I'll leave it right there. You got the one take the next situation, you got one being falsely accused, and their whole life is being destroyed at the same time, but they don't have a chance to confront the lie. And but not you because you're the superintendent, but you're going to make the decision, well, they need to be kicked out based on the lie because there's no cross-examination. So the only facts you got in front of you in that case, I ain't talking about your case, but in the case I'm talking about, it's the untruth. And all I'm saying is that if you got accused or your principal got accused and they had to go before court of mistreating those students, they would have due process. They would have total due process. That's what we're talking about.
I hate to cut him off, but we have two more to speak.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Jerome Dees, Southern Poverty Law Center.
Mr. Chairman, could you at least tell us if they are a proponent or an opponent before they speak?
He's a proponent.
Proponent, okay.
Good morning. During one of the first years that this bill was filed, the House Education Policy Committee got a chance to hear from Ms. Pelton, whose son was a star student athlete and a senior who secured a scholarship to play ball at Jacksonville State. In her testimony before that body, she shared these words, if I can read them briefly with you. During his senior year, my son was falsely accused by school officials of allegedly using marijuana in the school parking lot. The school board offered no evidence that he engaged in this conduct. He voluntarily submitted himself to 2 drug tests, both negative, and presented them to the school, but the district refused to consider it. Even though my son did not do what the school said he did, and the school had no evidence to support their allegations against him, my son was suspended from school for months. Before this happened, my son was a model student. He had no prior disciplinary history. He worked hard in school and was a star athlete with opportunities to play college athletics. But when he was denied a fair and impartial hearing and was arbitrarily suspended from school for months, he lost those opportunities and was forced to attend an alternative school that resembled more of a prison and offered a highly inferior education. In 1975, a Supreme Court comprised of 6 Republican-appointed justices addressed this very type of scenario. In that case, Goss v. Lopez, the court observed that teachers, principals, school bus drivers, teachers' aides, they all have certain protections in place that ensure they are afforded a fair process when facing accusations of wrongdoing. They then logically concluded that in order to protect the right to education, those very same due process protections, yes, even in an administrative hearing, they should and in fact do apply to students facing disciplinary action in schools. Over the ensuing decades, states across the country began enacting legislation that would codify those constitutional rights. Nearly 50 years later, Alabama remains the only state in the Southeast without codified due process protections for students. The sole function of SB 181 is to bring us in line with our neighboring states, federal case law, and that decades-old Supreme Court ruling to ensure that
you, Mr.
students
Dees.
are afforded simple rights when facing long-term discipline. I'm open to any practical or technical questions that
We have one more speaker.
Absolutely.
And then we'll try to wrap up. Clerk, who's up next as an proponent or an opponent? I'm sorry.
Opponent Ryan Hollingsworth, SSA.
Good morning, Ryan Hollingsworth, School Superintendent of Alabama. And we stand in opposition to this bill this morning as written. We have tried to work with Senator Smitherman and Hal and made some progress, but at this point, there's a few things that we just can't agree on, so we have to agree just to disagree. So I went back and looked at the SIR data that the State Department puts on the website about long-term suspensions and expulsions as defined in this bill. And in 2020-21 school year, we had 143 total expulsions, 103 long-term suspensions. That's a total of 246. We have 725,000 kids in public school. So that's 0.03%. It's 246 total for the state of Alabama. We look at lines 77 through 83. It restricts a LEA, a school, from being able to suspend a kid in pre-K through fifth grade unless they are a threat to others or do damage of over $1,000 to a school. So in that same set of data, I looked at what did schools suspend kids for in grades pre-K through 5 that I think this bill, the way it's written in my interpretation, would prevent us from suspending kids for if this had been in place in the 2021 school year. Those items are disorderly conduct, willful and persistent disobedience, defiance of authority, profanity or vulgarity, tobacco use or possession, theft, inappropriate use of technology, drug possession or use, burglary, breaking and entry, alcohol possession or use. So we believe that the way it's written, that we could not suspend kids for those things. I know as you went around this past year and campaigned for your position, you talked to a lot of teachers. And one of the things they shared with you was the issues they're having in the classroom and some support from administrators, and I've heard that. I think this bill as written would make it more difficult to remove students from the classroom for those very reasons. Senator Smitherman is a basketball coach, longtime basketball coach, and I've watched him coach a game or two, and they're pretty good. I coached a little bit too, not as good as he is, but his basketball team, I'm sure he has rules for his team, and he shares those rules with his team. He gives those kids on his team due process, I'm sure, but he controls those decisions of who plays, who's suspended, and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Hollingsworth.
Thank you.
This concludes our public hearing, and
May I have my comment?
as I said earlier, if you will, can you be brief in your comments, because the bill's going to come back before the committee to be voted on, Senator Smithman. Okay.
That's not why I wanted to comment, Mr.
You can have your comment.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. I'll try to do as you asked. First, I want to say this to the body. The very reason that Judge Pryor, who was the judge of the 11th Circuit when he was Attorney General, and myself, who at that time was chairman of Judiciary, sat down and established, and you all voted to support the Sentencing Commission so that we would have uniformity in sentencing across this whole state. You had one jurisdiction, you're still a lawnmower, you get 11 years. You had another jurisdiction, you still a lawnmower, you get probation for the same lawnmower. That was why the Sentencing Commission, to get consistency on sentencing and on due process. This is what we're talking about here as number one, is that some district will throw a kid out for a month on something. Another district will maybe suspend them one day for something. And the disparity goes to the judgment of the person who makes a decision. And whether or not we want to put our head under the table or not, it's unfortunate, but racism is alive and well. I'll leave it right there when you start talking about the judgments. Let me finish, please. I ain't saying you stopping me, but let me finish. The thing I feel bad about the most is that as Mr. Dees spoke, I worked on 2 years on this bill or longer. And half these folks that are getting up here and speaking, we compromised to the point where the bill was acceptable enough to go before the House Education Committee. And the only reason I'm just going to tell y'all that the bill didn't get before the House because 2 of the people that was in support of the bill was in another committee meeting. Now, the bill I brought back is the bill that we compromised on. That's what this is. All this new stuff that they don't like and whatever like that, that was a part of the compromise of what we gave up in the bill all the way through the process to get it to where it would go to the House floor. The disingenuousness is that now everybody flying back up here, they can't stand the bill because, we hadn't done anything to get to this. This is the same bill that 90% of the people signed off on that you got now. The first one I told the chair not to move was the wrong one because it was the original bill without their changes in it. This bill has everybody changes that when we got through the House committee, that the House of Legislature accepted and requested, that you all requested. This is very disingenuous that they're going to come up here now because they don't want the kids to have due process. They want to be a judge, the prosecutor, and the jury for these kids. And that is not right. That is not what everybody out there have the opportunity to face their accuser. It ain't no different than you see right now in these drive-bys. That's why these folks, the person in Dadeville, the reason that they go in court, somebody's got to get up there and say that they saw these people or these people did that. That's the only way you can prosecute people. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Smithman, if we can,
Mr. Chairman, I just one last comment. I support this bill because I do believe in justice and fairness to everybody. And I think that's the whole point of this bill. It's not about how many suspensions are out there. I would really like to know the racial breakdown of those suspensions that has occurred already, that have occurred already. So it is about justice. And when I think about the young man, the case that Mr. Dees read about, JSU, which I sit on the board of trustees there, we lost a great student. He was set to go off. And like it or not, unless you all can live in this skin for a period of time, you have no idea what we still go through. So I'm just asking you to have some empathy, to have the ability to put yourself in the shoes of people of color for some time and know that we are still in 2023 still treated differently. And yet legislatures around this entire country are putting bills in to turn back the hands of time. Even when I had a bill separating the drum major of justice's birthday from a racist Confederate general, just to separate their birthdays, where I had 28 sponsors, co-sponsors 2 years ago, which only 6 of those were Democrats. And then a committee kills that bill this year. Something is wrong. So I didn't mean to go off into all of that, but the gist of this bill is about fairness and everybody being treated the same way by the same set of rules. So I support your bill, Senator Smithman, and I think you have been working on this longer than 2 years. I thank you for your work.
Thanks, Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, for those that had bills remaining on the calendar today, we're not going to be able to get to them. We will try to get to those next week, have those first on the calendar in committee next week. We stand adjourned.